Against? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9, the financial performance report for April. Bruce, welcome to the table. Again, if there are any headline comments that you want to make, then we'll move to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report is very similar to the previous month. Operating surplus remains very close to what it was the last month, and what we advised you the forecast would be. It's slightly better. Recreation and sport revenues have improved slightly from the COVID downturn that we forecast. So the COVID net impact is slightly lower than it was in our last report. In terms of capital, the capital carry forward is very similar to what was discussed in the annual plan briefings in the last week, around the 175 million mark. The Treasury breach we made you aware of last month has actually happened, so that's a breach of the funding risk. Our Treasurer is here just to give you perhaps a brief snapshot of what the OCR change meant yesterday in terms of this year's impact and potentially next year's impact.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I hope the breach actually isn't controversial because we have discussed it previously.
The breach has been well covered in previous meetings.
Great, thank you. Really, for me, just to talk a little bit about the official cash rate change that most of you have probably heard about from yesterday. The Reserve Bank was rather more aggressive than pretty much all market commentators were expecting, and it has forced us to change our interest cost budgets for the next 2 or 3 financial years, so it will affect the annual plan. It's something I don't like doing when we do these forecasts. We like to make them, well, obviously as accurate as possible, but we also want to make it quite robust so we don't flap around every time the market moves. We've been quite good at that between last November and now during quite extraordinary times, but unfortunately this has been a significant enough move that we really need to change things. So our floating rate costs will be going up in our annual plan budget that we'll need to reassess. It's probably going to be around about 2 million in the financial year 23, but we're still working on that together to find out what the impacts are going to be on rates. I would just a reminder that 80% of our current debt is actually hedged for the whole of next year, so you're only talking about the unhedged portion and any new borrowing we do. But the numbers are obviously big enough that it does have a material impact on rates.
All right, so that increased cost, that'll be taken into account in annual plan decision making. Correct. And you're obviously working on that to firm up exactly what that looks like in view of yesterday's announcement. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. We've spoken to Auckland, they're doing exactly the same thing. Yep. All right.
So Steve, you're not of a view that you think you are around what a figure might look like at the moment?
Like I say, the interest cost figure for 23, so the next financial year, is around about 2 million.
That's about 0.4%?
About 0.3%. So it will take it the 4.2 we talked about in the previous briefings to about 4.5.
Okay, thank you. I think that's what I wanted members to hear. 0.3% shift in the annual plan position. Thank you.
The expectation in terms of this financial year, which isn't in this report, is probably under 100,000 will be the impact.
And that obviously is taken into account in the context of the surplus that we're carrying at the moment, or forecasting as well.
That'll be updated for the next report.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's virtually no change. The change is really because the expected increase in interest rates has been accelerated. It's very much faster and sharper next financial year, but for the next 2 months, it's not much different.
Okay, thank you. Phil, you've got a question.
Yeah, just so this increase is just on 20% of our borrowed.
Correct. Yes. Ooh. So about 300 million or so is unhedged.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, so we've got a recommendation then to receive the information in the report and note the breach of the funding risk policy as we have in the past. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Tim Scanderas. Is there any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.